Hi. I hope everyone is comfortable in their chairs, on their beds, eating their favorite snacks. Because I'm about to start talking. And basically, I'm doing this in kind of like a podcast setting, just so y'all don't have to be stuck watching my face all the time when you don't have to be, really. So, today, if you can tell from the title, I'm going to be looking into the movie Smile and basically its marketing, and based on my knowledge that I know as a student who studies a lot of this stuff that has to do with the entertainment industry and film and marketing and business, how that is good and how they have other projects that may not do it as well. Basically, the marketing of thriller movies and its do's and don'ts. And I'm going to be mentioning three other movies compared to Smile and how they did advertising as well in an effective way, and then how some other movies that I will not name have done marketing in ineffective ways. So I'm genuinely giving like a general consensus reply to like ineffective marketing. So before you get tired of me talking about what I'm going to do, let me just do it. So, the way Smile was advertised is by hiring extras to go to televised events and smile ominously into the camera. And the way it got spread is by people seeing it by chance and then going to social media to advertise it. Thinking about why that is such a good method of marketing, besides the fact that it's just purely creative, and I have not seen something like that in a while. I'm going to be talking about the main forms of advertising that I find absolutely fascinating and extremely effective. And while these are all intertwined with one another, they all have the purpose of trying to gain an audience and a following, which are completely different things. You can have an audience and you can have a following for a movie. An audience is just people who are going to go watch it and just consume that media. And a following are people who stay put and they watch the process that lead up to watching it. They will follow through with the series, they will follow through with the sequel, they will follow through with the production. That is a following. So basically, the main forms of advertising I consider the three I's. Again, I learned this in class. They're mostly using the internet, interaction, and introspection. If I'm going to explain the internet, it is essentially using the internet to spiral a conversation about the project. Now, earlier, meaning a couple of minutes ago, I mentioned that I'm going to be comparing Smile to three other movies. And those three other movies are Paranormal Activity, which came out in 2007, Blair Witch Project, which came out in 1999, and Nope, that came out in 2022. The perfect examples of how Smile used the internet to spiral a conversation about the project is in the aforementioned strategy. It is essentially advertising by hiring extras to go to televised events and smile honestly into the camera. And the way it spread is by curiosity sprouting an interest in the film. And that happened from people seeing it and then going on social media, creating a hashtag, following the project. That is I'd say, a good example of a modern creative way to advertise projects using the internet. Paranormal Activity did a lot of things with the internet, but I think the biggest thing that they did for that time was using hashtags. And now, again, that doesn't seem like it's a lot, but given the fact that this was again 2007 and that's when Twitter was first sprouting off, using hashtags, among other things that I'm going to mention, was the perfect way to spread awareness to this film. And another thing that I'm just going to say that Paranormal Activity did, they actually showed the trailer or pieces or teaser of Paranormal Activity at a horror film festival when it was still in production. So that's another way to get a certain following, but the hashtags brought forth a following and that turned into an audience as well. The next project that did something is the Blair Witch Project. I'm going to say that this was a good way to do it, but it didn't use the internet as we know it today, because obviously there was no social media platforms like that in 1999. We didn't have IG and Twitter in 1999. So what they did was they used online chat rooms. A lot of times I believe they were in the website that Blair Witch Project had, and they use online chat rooms to talk to their following and drop hints and teasers about the project, and it gave the audience a reason to keep up with the project, which is entirely a different method of purpose for using the internet to spiral a conversation about it. It gave them a reason to keep up with it. Lastly, the last movie that had a form of advertising related to the internet really is Nope. They use ambiguous posters with the cloud, quote unquote, or the actors reacting to something that were honestly meant to mislead the audience a certain amount and build conversations on what is the obstacle. As in Nope, the obstacle was more of an environmental factor rather than a person. So it's something that had to be figured out by the audience instead of just given to people. So that's another reason why it gave the audience a reason to keep up with the project, and it misled them a certain amount to where they were interested in what the obstacle actually was. So next, talking about interaction. It's basically when you make a world or platform related to the project in order to garner attention towards it. And this marketing strategy is kind of interesting because it's really showing how people are using the money they have to be creative in a certain amount. Because Paranormal Activity, what they did was they created a campaign called Demand It. And I honestly wish a lot more movies did that now, which is basically a campaign that they made in order to get the audience to vote on which theaters they wanted the movie to be shown in. And this came out in 2007, so they could just use hashtags with Demand It to really push that. And it also helped with solidifying a budget, because obviously when you're giving movies to certain theaters, they do get a percentage of that revenue. So if you are going to put a movie in a theater that not a lot of people want to go to, then that is kind of goes against your budget, and it's not good for if you really want to solidify the budget. And that's a perfect way to also garner following more than an audience, and then that following becomes your audience if they can actually show up to watch the movie. So that's an interactive way, among others, that they used a platform, and they made a platform to relate to the project and create it, tailor it to gaining a following. The Blair Witch Project, what they did to make an interactive world is they put up missing person leaflets with actors on the posters and posted it everywhere. And they literally physically placed it in different locations and garnered people's interest in a physical manner rather than on social media also. Lastly, Nope had the website Jupiter's Claim, which is essentially spreading awareness and insight into the world. And it's essentially this interactive website where you can go and look at the different places of the town, and you could learn more about those. So if you actually watch the movie, you can see how each place in the town is necessary and how it applies to what is going on. So yeah, I feel like that interactive way was a method to really get people into what they're going to see without exactly telling them exactly what they're going to see. Next is introspection, and it's basically using what is being given to the audience by the people who created the film in order to bring attention to the project, or bring more attention to the project than we already have. Again, I mentioned this with Nope, and they have the ambiguous posters that were meant to mislead the audience and build conversations. basically what they were trying to get us to believe is what is the obstacle. And I feel like this was very, very helpful considering Jordan Peele's past projects like Get Out and Us are films with strong social messages that had an influence on what was expected for this project, Nope. So we were already expecting it to be something with a hidden message or something where we're trying to find out what's the obstacle. And even though in those films we see that people are the obstacles and their reasoning for becoming an obstacle has to do with their environment, and social messages along the way that are woven into the plot and the environment, we were expecting a certain pattern with his films. So this was already something that we were using, and it gave us the desire to look further into the project along with the ambiguous posters and film. For the Blair Witch Project, they did this by creating a mockumentary, and essentially Blair Witch Project is about a legend, and so they made a mockumentary about the legend that the plot was based on. So people didn't completely go into the film solely ambiguous mentions of police reports and leaflets. They went in knowing that it's about a sort of legend, and the legend is the reason why we have all these other interactive methods. So now that I've brought attention to the main forms of advertising that I find fascinating and effective, and I've mentioned how the internet interaction and introspection have really helped with these thriller movies like Smile, Paranormal Activity, The Blair Witch Project, and Nope, I just want to acknowledge that while not all of these films used these methods, sometimes they used more than one method, and that's all they needed in order to really create an effective plan. Sometimes they needed just one, but sometimes they needed multiple, and either way, they still used fairly creative ways to push this plot or push this project forward in order to, again, gain a following and audience. Now, this part is just entirely opinion based, but I'm going to say certain things that I've also just based on what I've learned in my education. Main forms of advertising that I find absolutely lazy and ineffective. I think that relying on the reputation of actors or directors, especially when their obstacles are not brought on by environment or force, is lazy and ineffective. And what I mean by environment or force is if it's a man-made or natural environmental obstacle or force. I'm going to say Nope did not do this. Since I'm just going out the gate and saying that Nope did not do this, I might as well just say, for Nope, the focus was more on the environment and an unknown factor as the obstacle, so mentions of the actor were not as prevalent. Even though we have posters of the actors and we knew who the actors were, they're already pretty established in the industry already, they were not pushed so much to where we were kind of unconsciously forced to focus on them rather than what the obstacle was. And that is a way that the marketing was effective, and it went to help the plot a lot more than if they were to just highlight the actors in this project and be like, oh wow, let's look. Like, Daniel Kaluuya has done work with Jordan Peele before in the past, and he's done like Black Mirror stuff in the past, so we're used to seeing him in like creepy positions. So it shouldn't have been so pushed, like it wasn't, but it should not have been so pushed for us to see him in this position, because we've seen him in positions similar to this before. So it was very smart of him to be acknowledged as a part of the plot, but not overall advertised as if he is the main part of the plot. That is why Nope did not rely on the reputations of actors or a director, because even though we all know that, again, Jordan Peele can create masterpieces and they always have some sort of social element to it, we didn't rely on that because we were given other effective methods of marketing that brought our attention in aside from that. Next, I want to talk about Smile because that's what this entire thing sprouted for me, but they used extras to advertise instead of main actors. We could have 100% Googled who the main actors were, we could have followed their accounts and seen who the main actors were, but they used extras. So they were not relying on the reputation of actors or directors, they were relying on extras and their work and what they were doing in these specific places in order to push their plot, which is very, very similar as it's just people in casual places smiling ominously at people. So it's related to the plot and it's good for marketing while also not using reputations of actors or a director in order to push that. Also, I'm gonna notice in Paranormal Activity, aside from the fact that they had a lot of footage advertising and marketing, the actors were, no offense, they were not very well known. And movie ads aside from them had to speak for itself to gain traction. So that's how Paranormal Activity didn't rely on the reputation of actors or directors. And lastly, the Blair Witch Project actors were also not well known, but they were used to help with effective ads. So even though we didn't know these actors, they were still used with the effective methods of marketing in order for us to finally see them in those positions. Okay, so my next main form of advertising that I find lazy and ineffective is relying on trailers and teasers. Now, hold on a minute because I'm going to explain how exactly, but it's lazy when it gives so much of the plot and obstacle away, which is something that now people do not have a very hard time doing. Again, I'm specifically talking about thriller movies. And a lot of the times you could possibly spin it that for other genres, this is not a big deal. But for horror movies and thriller movies, there's a certain amount or there's a certain part of it that should be scary to us. It should impact us in a way that messes with our minds in a bit sometimes. So if you are giving so much away, it take something away from the audience and following, which, as I've mentioned, with effective methods of marketing, is the entire reason why you are doing that. It's to gain an audience and a following. So if you are relying on the reputation of actors in your trailers while also giving so much away that there's nothing for us to really focus on, there's nothing for us to really want to gain more insight on, then it's taking something away from us. And that's just bad. Allow me to sort of elaborate on what I mean by relying on trailers and teasers. Again, this is what I mentioned in the beginning, as I'm not going to be specific. If you can find movies where you think that this has happened and you want to put them in my comments, let me know. But I'm in no way trying to talk about how another film was effective right now. If y'all want me to talk about that, I can, but right now that's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to focus on the positives of marketing and effective methods of marketing while not trying to really focus on ineffective editing. I just want to generalize it. What I mean by relying on trailers and teasers is having multiple trailers and teasers that show the exact same thing. That is literally just lazy and it's money hungry, which is ironic because it's also draining your money to make all of this stuff and edit all this stuff and hire people to make these trailers and then just post them now on YouTube where you can literally gain money for that. It's just like, it's just not creative. It's lazy. You're showing the exact same thing. It's like you just want the money that you get from the views of seeing the exact same thing rather than actually trying to help your audience and try to gain a following. That's just boring. It's just like, I already saw this. Just move on. Like, okay. Next thing is having a lot of videos or teasers or trailers with no purpose is lazy and takes away from the people who need to understand your intentions the way they are shown, not the way they are explained, especially when they're super, super long. There have been some films where I've seen teasers and videos that are supposed to be a part of marketing of this movie, yet they have no reasoning, or like you see them and you're like, cool, this makes sense, and then you watch the movie and those scenes are irrelevant. And it's like they're trying to do it in an effort, I guess, to mislead audience members, and they think that just because it's a thriller, they can do irrelevant stuff to mislead audience members, and we won't take issue with it. But like, to be very honest, that's not how stuff should work. People need to understand your intentions, and that goes for really any form of direction or any form of project. People need to understand your intentions the way they are shown, not the way you may explain them. You may explain that, oh, you were trying to mislead them with this, that, and the third, but you didn't show that in an effective way. You just gave a video with no purpose. And again, that is with the purpose of gaining money from views and just being lazy and just not being very good at showing how you want to mislead your audience with your intentions. So it's just bad. It's terrible. So before I go, because this is essentially all that I have to really say, I'm just going to mention how I'm showing examples of films from different decades. Again, I said that Blair Witch was from 1999, Paranormal Activity was from 2007, Nope was in 2022, and Smile was in 2022. I will say that while the internet was maybe bigger now, and certain things that we have now in our world, that we have now in our time, like Twitter and Instagram, that make it slightly easier, maybe? Tell me if you think it's easier or harder now back in the day. Obviously, the internet was so much of a bigger thing in 1999 because it was new, and even in 2007 it was new, or Twitter as a concept was new, so using hashtags and stuff like that was crazy to people now than it is in 2022. And it may feel like, because so much was done in the past and you don't want to be like, quote unquote, accused of being unoriginal with your marketing and PR, there are a lot of hit or misses in terms of showing creativity. But 2022 is proof that good PR and marketing can not only bring attention to a film, but help build it up for viewing and interpretation as it is presented. This is like me trying to show you guys there are methods in which this year has come up with amazing creative marketing ideas. And while you may get accused of being like unoriginal with your marketing, that marketing worked. And if so many people are scared of being accused of being unoriginal or uncreative, that they're not doing what people did in the past, it is so much more of a shock when people see people not afraid of that and they do it anyways. And so it just brings people back to that time. So I don't know, regardless of if you think that you'll be, again, accused of copying other things, if your script is original, then people shouldn't get on you for that, to be very honest. And like, if you manage to do it in a way that is tailored to your project, in a way that gains an audience and following, then what's the issue? Let's be serious. Okay, well, that's really all I had to say, kind of a rant about a look into Smile and thriller marketing do's and don'ts. I hope that this was an amazing video for you. Let me know if you want to talk about what I was saying here, then you can let me know in the comments. Thank you for spending time here. Hopefully you love this. I release content whenever, and I hope your day and night is amazing. Bye!